Welcome back to Star or Shovelware, my name's Luke, and over the past few years, retro-inspired games have literally exploded, and it seems like every week there's a new title added to the eShop sporting a 16-bit pixel aesthetic. But if, like me, the majority of your childhood was spent in the 90s, then it's likely that the 32-bit era is where your retro-loving heart likely lies. And so today, my friends, we're going to be paying homage to that particular era of gaming goodness as I bring you 17 PS1-like games available to play right now on the Nintendo Switch. So, kicking things off with a bit of a strange one then, we have Paratopic, a game which, alongside our next title, I reviewed right here on the channel, and is available as part of the Horror Bundle on the Switch. This one though is a short surreal road trip in which you're caught smuggling some dodgy VHS tapes across the border, and the game jumps between three different characters at different points in time to unveil the mystery behind the tapes and why they've got you into such trouble. A wonderfully weird one this though, and well worth a playthrough. Next up we have Fatum Betula, a game which I still failed to pronounce properly, and a journey through a fever dream world filled with unusual characters, in which it's your job to find something to feed to a magical birch tree in order to determine the future of the world. This one includes elements of exploration and puzzle solving and has a longer playtime than Paratopic, sporting a total of 10 different endings for you to discover, some of which are actually pretty tricky to unlock, but it's a super unique game and plenty weird. Possibly the most wholesome title on today's list, A Short Hike, is exactly that. A journey through the peaceful mountainside landscapes of a national park as you hike, climb and soar your way to its peak whilst controlling Claire, an anthropomorphic bird. This one though is an open world exploration game in which your main objective is to collect golden feathers, but there are plenty of other side quests and minigames to partake in along the way as you help out the island's animal residents. A short but sweet gameplay experience this one, and highly recommended. One for all the fans of the classic SmackDown and Raw games now then, with Wrestling Empire, a game which allows you to create your own wrestler and take them on a career path to stardom, populate a single ring with up to 30 wrestlers, and duke it out with up to 4 players, both in the ring and backstage. Now, I had a great time playing and reviewing this one on the channel, with the game's career mode having some genuinely amusing story arcs to enjoy, and the game was created by solo dev M. Dickey, which is particularly impressive considering this one is actually better than most AAA offerings. If you enjoyed the wrestling games of yesteryear though, this one will no doubt conjure up some fond memories. Sagebrush is our next game, and this one is a first-person narrative adventure game where you head out into the Mexican desert to explore a remote compound and former cult headquarters. Inspired by real-world cults, Sagebrush sees you uncovering the mysteries behind the compound, its inhabitants and their beliefs, and why it now sits abandoned. It's a short but thought-provoking journey touching on some unsettling subject matter with an equally unsettling atmosphere. Up next we're going all-out horror with Murder House, a game in which a local news team breaks into an abandoned house chasing rumours of ghostly goings-on, only to find themselves being chased by a maniac in a rabbit suit. Complete with tank controls, third-person cinematic cameras and a Resident Evil style save system, this one packs the blood and gore of 80s slasher movies into a nerve-shredding 90s survival horror experience. And if you enjoyed the classic Resident Evil and Silent Hill games back in the day, you'll no doubt have a blast playing Murder House. So, sticking with the horror theme for a moment, our next game, Vaccine, is also tapping into that 90s survival horror genre, but with a little bit of a twist, as in this one you're searching for a vaccine for your friend and have a limited time in which to locate and return it, but each run of the game presents you with a new randomly generated layout which adds an additional layer of challenge to the game. Admittedly though, this one does get mixed reviews and might not be quite up to scratch like the other games on our list, having a little more jank and a little less content, but it's well worth a look in nonetheless. So our next two games are looking to cater for fans of those early 90s platformers, as Toree 3D and Toree 2 wing the way onto our list. And these two are super budget options at $1 each, but have plenty of charm and nostalgia to offer to players. Taking control of a tiny yellow bird, you'll double jump and dash your way through levels, collecting stars as you go. And while you can expect a certain level of challenge and jank with these ones, the levels have plenty of variety. And at such a low price point, there's little reason not to give them a go. One for all you classic sports game fans now then with Bush Hockey League, a 5-on-5 arcade style ice hockey game which pays homage to those old school NHL titles while bringing the rough and tumble of the sport back to the forefront. In Bush Hockey League though, you'll find brawls and body checks galore as you battle for control of the puck, while attempting to absolutely demolish your opponents with hard hitting tackles and plenty of punch-ups between the goals. If you're shite at these games like I am though, thankfully in Bush Hockey you can always resort to beating the opposing team into submission. Back in 1995 is our next title, and another throwback to the classic survival horror games, which sees you exploring a sparse cityscape in search of your missing daughter, and interrogating the suspicious characters you meet in the hopes of obtaining any information which will lead you to a location. Now this is another one which has received mixed reviews and has a pretty short runtime, but if you've played the other survival horror titles on our list, then back in 1995 may be worth a go. Anodyne 2 Return to Dust is our next title, and while the first game in the series went for a 16-bit Zelda-like approach to its gameplay, the second one mixes classic 2D dungeon crawling with 3D exploration. In a world infected by deadly nanodust, you play as a nano cleaner known as Nova, whose job it is to travel the world, meet new people, and shrink down and enter their bodies to purge them of their infection. Some unique ideas with this one though, to be sure, and some real impressive work by a two-person dev team. Back to more horror now then with Nun Massacre, which comes to us from the same developer as Murder House, but swaps out the third person camera work for a first person perspective. The story with this one though finds you stranded in the middle of a storm and seeking shelter, but you soon find yourself playing a deadly game of hide and seek against a terrifying nun of all things. This lady of the cloth don't play by the rules though, and if you're looking for plenty of scares, then just like Snickers, Nun Massacre is guaranteed to satisfy. So if you like your jank by the bucket load, then look no further than Dongo Adventure, a 2.5D platformer where you play as a mouse who launches cheese at enemies and can't jump for shit. And this is one which I kind of slammed a bit on the channel, but in its own little way it has a certain degree of charm to it. Now, most platformers on the Switch have adopted more modern mechanics, but Dongo keeps things old school, with tough jumps, janky hitboxes, and simple but challenging levels. You'll no doubt rage a little whilst playing this one, but if you're looking for an authentic PS1 platformer experience, then Dongo Adventure is about as near to one as you're gonna get on the Switch. Now our next title, Umurangi Generation, is one of the more unique games on our list, as it's a first-person photography game set in New Zealand in a pretty dismal dystopian future, where you play as a courier for the Toree Express. Your objective in the game is simple though, locate and take pictures of specific features in each level, and then deliver the finished product to a drop-off point. But it's all of the subtle imagery used in the game and the overall oppressive atmosphere which really adds to the whole experience of this one, and the multitude of camera lenses and filters allow for plenty of creativity with your snaps. All in all, a great game in a rarely travelled niche genre. So our final dose of horror today comes in the form of Kwaidan, Azuma Manor Story, a game which sees you exploring an old Japanese manor and battling with its infestation of nightmarish yokai. This one though features a unique blend of 3D action and point-and-click adventure elements, demanding both skillful combat and puzzle solving skills from the player, and while its visuals may just be edging outside of the realms of the PlayStation 1 era, I felt that alongside the gameplay, they were just close enough to include Kwaidan on this list. So before we get on to the final game on today's list, it's once more time for a few honourable mentions, and these titles have in no way tried to emulate PS1 games in terms of the visuals, but the gameplay is heavily influenced by three of my favourite titles of the generation. Now the first of these games is Pumpkin Jack, an awesome 3D platformer where you play as the mythical Pumpkin Lord, Jack, and gameplay in this one is very similar to the medieval series of games, involving plenty of hack and slash action, some tight platforming, and a few environmental puzzles thrown in for good measure. Our next honourable mention, Bloodstaind Ritual of the Night, takes a bunch of different elements from several of the Castlevania games, including Metroidvania-like exploration, the weapon and levelling systems introduced in Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and a soul ability system similar to the one found in Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. An absolutely fantastic game this one though, and a definite must play for fans of Symphony of the Night. Now the final two games I want to mention are Fast RMX and Redout, which both feature lightning fast racing action as you pilot futuristic hover cars at eye-blistering speeds through a diverse range of tracks and game modes. These two games though take influence from the likes of the Wipeout and F-Zero games, and while admittedly the Switch just about manages to keep up with the visuals with these ones, I thought that they were well worth a mention. And so onto our final game of this list, and the most recently released title, we have Boreal Tenebrae, and we're finishing off where we started with another weird one. In this game though, you play as multiple characters exploring the dream of a dying town. What that means, you'll have to play the game to find out, but the game's world is shrouded in mystery and awash with peculiarities, and some pretty horrifying sights to boot. Its visuals take influence from the low poly era of the 90s whilst still managing to be beautifully detailed, but be warned, this is just the first act of a multi-part story, so don't expect a veritable conclusion when you get to its end point. And so that about rounds out our list for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, it took a while to put together, and hopefully I didn't miss anything obvious, but if I did, leave any additional recommendations in the comments section below. And if you're looking for more retro goodness, make sure to check out my list of 18 retro-like shooters on the Switch if you haven't already done so. As always though, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more Switch related content, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.